The Galactic Council chamber was full that day. Representatives from hundreds of alien species filled the giant hall. Voices echoed from every corner as council members argued, debated, and laughed. On the main platform stood High Commander Zelva of the Dravari Dominion. He was tall, with dark blue skin and sharp golden eyes. His voice was loud and full of pride. "We have been patient with the humans for too long," Zelva shouted. "They are weak. They are slow. They are still children playing with sticks, while we control the stars." The chamber laughed with him. Council members from other races joined the mocking. "The humans build small ships and call them fleets," said one councillor from the Garthak species. "They colonize small planets and call it an empire." More laughter filled the hall. Even the official recorders smiled while typing their notes. Zelva raised his hand for silence. "Today," he said, "the Dravari Dominion declares war on Earth and its colonies. We will crush their ships. We will burn their cities. And when it is over, humans will become just another forgotten species." The crowd roared with approval. Members stood up, cheering. Zelva smiled, enjoying the attention. A live broadcast was sent across the galaxy. Billions of beings from different worlds watched the declaration. On Earth, the video played on giant screens in city squares. People stopped walking. Cars paused in the streets. Soldiers in Terran bases stood still, watching. Commander Holt sat inside the Earth Defense Command Center, staring at the screen. His face was calm, but his hands were tight fists. Admiral Reyes watched from her office in low orbit above Earth. Her eyes narrowed as she listened. On a mining colony on Titan, Sergeant Lee and his squad saw the news during lunch. Chen, one of his soldiers, dropped his fork. "Are they serious?" Chen asked. Lee didn't answer. He stood and left the room. On Mars, students in a military academy stared at their holoscreens. One young cadet said what many others were thinking. "They're making a big mistake." On Earth, the president called for an emergency meeting with top military leaders. But something strange happened next. Earth went dark. For exactly 3 minutes, all human military channels went silent. No messages, no ship movements, no signals. Across the galaxy, council spies noticed it too. "What's happening?" one Garthak intelligence officer asked. "Are they scared?" Another council agent laughed, but the laughter didn't last, because after 3 minutes, Earth lit up. Every hidden Terran fleet came online. Thousands of ships powered up in secret locations. Massive dreadnoughts that the council didn't even know existed started moving. Stealth units, long thought to be just rumors, jumped to high alert. Old mining stations opened to reveal missile silos and railgun platforms on the dark side of Earth's moon. Black warships that had slept for years came alive. In deep space, human scout ships began jumping toward Dravari territory. Inside the Terran AI network, defense codes unlocked. Operation Iron Vengeance. Admiral Reyes whispered. Commander Holt stood at the command table. He pointed at the star map. "We have 72 hours, Holt said. "That's how long before their first fleet reaches New Horizon." Reyes nodded. "And we'll be ready." On New Horizon, a peaceful human colony with farms and small towns, people packed emergency bags. Evacuation drills started. Underground bunkers opened for the first time in 10 years. But the colony governor refused to run. "We stay," she said. "This is our home." The Terran fleet sent reinforcements. Stealth drones moved into orbit. New Horizons defense grid powered up. Back at the Galactic Council, reports started coming in. "Human fleets are mobilizing," one assistant said. "Impossible," a counselor shouted. "They don't have this many ships." "They do now," the assistant replied. High Commander Zelva still smiled. "Let them come," he said. "We will crush them all the same." Inside a Terran Ghost Division ship, Commander Rivers checked his weapons. "We go dark in 2 hours," Rivers said. "Our target is the Dravari fuel depot at Xylan Reach. No survivors." His team nodded. On Earth, families gathered in living rooms. News channels showed Terran warships leaving orbit. Children waved goodbye to parents in uniform. Old veterans pulled out dusty medals and watched the skies. In space, the first wave of Terran ships moved toward enemy space. Aboard her flagship, Admiral Reyes spoke to all human forces. "We didn't start this war," she said, "but we'll finish it." The crew cheered. Sergeant Lee and his unit boarded their transport. Chen checked his rifle. "You think they're ready for us?" Chen asked. Lee smiled for the first time that day. "No," he said, "they're not." The human war machine started moving. Quiet, fast, deadly. Across the galaxy. The council watched. Some council members started to worry. Some called for peace talks, but it was too late. The humans were coming, and this time they weren't holding back. The countdown had begun. And High Commander Zelvar didn't know it yet, but he had just made the biggest and last mistake of his life. The first Dravari attack fleet moved fast. 12 warships, including 3 heavy cruisers, jumped toward the human colony called New Horizon. High Commander Zelvar had ordered them to strike hard and fast. The Dravari ships had powerful plasma cannons and strong shields. They had crushed smaller alien races before. To them, this was just another easy target. On board the Dravari flagship, Captain Relmick stood at the command center. He smiled as he watched New Horizon on the screen. A green and blue planet, with small cities and farms, floated below. Scan for human defenses, Relmick ordered. His sensor officer checked the data. Minimal ground defenses, few orbital platforms, nothing serious. Relmick laughed. Prepare to fire. Target their communication towers first, then hit their power grid. The Dravari ships moved closer. Plasma weapons charged. Fighters launched from the cruisers and headed for the planet, but something unexpected happened. Just as the Dravari prepared to fire, their targeting systems started to fail. Screens flickered, radar went blank. Communication between ships became static. "What's going on?" Relmick shouted. "Unknown interference. Something's jamming us." Before Relmick could give new orders, human stealth drones appeared from nowhere, black and silent. The drones moved fast. They launched swarms of micromissiles. The first Dravari frigate exploded in seconds. On the ground, New Horizon's hidden railguns opened fire. Massive metal slugs ripped through another Dravari ship, breaking it in half. Panic spread across the Dravari fleet. "Shields up. Return fire," Relmick yelled, but it was already too late. A group of Terran corvettes, hiding behind the planet's moon, jumped in suddenly. They fired precision torpedoes at the largest Dravari cruiser. Explosions tore through its engine room. Inside, the Dravari ship's crew members screamed as fires spread. Relmick's second officer shouted, "We're surrounded." "No," Relmick growled. "We are the Dravari Dominion. Fight back." He ordered all remaining ships to launch fighters. Hundreds of Dravari attack craft filled the sky, but from orbit, the Terran fleet answered. A human destroyer called the TSF Hammer broke from formation. Its railguns opened fire. Its point defense, lasers cut through Dravari fighters like paper. Then came the Terran bombers. Flying low and fast, they dropped anti-ship payloads directly onto Dravari hulls. The space above New Horizon became a graveyard. On the planet's surface, Sergeant Lee and his squad were already in position. They waited in foxholes near the colonies. North Sector. Chen kept checking the sky. "I thought they'd send more," Chen said. "Be patient," Lee replied. Suddenly, Dravari drop pods started falling. They hit the ground hard, sending up clouds of dust. Dravari soldiers poured out. They had energy rifles and thick armor. Lee gave the signal. The humans opened fire. Precision shots dropped the first wave of Dravari. Mines buried in the ground exploded. As enemy troops advanced, Lee moved quickly, switching cover and giving orders. Chen took out a Dravari heavy gunner with a clean shot to the head. From the west side, a group of human combat drones moved in, firing with deadly accuracy. Tried to push forward but kept falling back. Inside the main colony bunker, Governor Ellis watched the battle on screen. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "Status?" she asked. "We're holding," her defense officer said. "For now." Governor Ellis sent a short message to Earth. "New Horizon under attack. Engaging enemy. Holding ground. Back." In space, Captain Relmick watched as one ship after another fell. "We have to retreat," his navigation officer shouted. "No retreat," Relmick screamed, but his ship shook violently as another human torpedo hit. Relmick's screen went dark. The flagship broke apart, taking him with it. In less than 2 hours, the entire Dravari attack fleet was destroyed. On the ground, the remaining Dravari soldiers surrendered. They dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Lee walked through the battlefield. Smoke filled the air. Dead Dravari bodies lay across the field. Chen stood beside him. "First contact, first blood," Chen said quietly. Lee nodded. "And not ours." On Earth, Admiral Reyes received the battle report. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minimal," Commander Holt said. Reyes looked at the star map. "This was their first punch," she said. "We punched back harder." Commander Holt leaned forward. "Should we wait for their next move?" he asked. Reyes shook her head. "No," she said. "We hit them first." Across the Terran fleet, orders were sent. "Prepare for counterattack. Prepare for war." In deep space, Terran strike groups began moving toward Dravari territory. On the Dravari homeworld, News of the defeat spread fast. Inside the council chamber, the mood had changed. The laughter was gone. For the first time, fear appeared. In their eyes, Zelva stood silent, staring at the reports. They destroyed our fleet. On the first day, one advisor whispered. Another counselor spoke, his voice shaking. What if we made a mistake? But Zelva's pride held strong. Double our forces, he said. Send more fleets. They got lucky once. It won't happen again. But even as he said it, deep in his mind, doubt started to grow, and far away. The human war machine kept moving. They were coming. Faster, stronger, and this time, they were not going to stop. The Davari Dominion was still in shock after their defeat at New Horizon. High Commander Zelva stood in the war room on Davari Prime, staring at the battle reports. Every fleet commander sent the same message. Human forces were faster, smarter, and more deadly than anyone had expected. Zelva slammed his fist on the table. This is not possible. Humans should not have this power. His advisors stood silent. None of them dared to speak. At the same time, far away in deep space, a small Terran strike ship drifted in the shadows. The TSF Black Phantom, a ghost division vessel, moved without sound, hidden from all senses. Inside the ship, Commander Rivers checked the mission plan. His team of 10 elite soldiers sat around him, each wearing dark combat suits with built-in cloaking systems. Our target is the Dravari shipyard at Xylan Reach, Rivers said. They're building new cruisers there. We're going to make sure those ships never leave the docks. Sergeant Vega, the team's demolition expert, smiled. Big fireworks. Rivers nodded. Big enough to make them cry. The Black Phantom dropped out of hyperspace near a cold asteroid belt. The ship stayed low, using the rocks for cover. The crew killed all lights. No signals, no engines. Just silent drift toward enemy space. At Xylan Reach, the Dravari worked night and day. The shipyard floated above a blue gas giant. 3 new battleships were almost ready. Hundreds of workers moved along metal walkways, installing weapons and engines. Security patrols flew around the station. Sensor drones floated near the perimeter, but none of them saw the Terran Ghost team coming at midnight station time. The Black Phantom released 5 small drop pods. Each pod carried 2 soldiers. The pods flew at high speed, too small and fast to trigger alarms. Within minutes, the pod slammed quietly onto the outer hull of the shipyard. Commander Rivers and his team climbed out. Cloaking systems activated. The humans became invisible shadows. They moved fast. That first target, the main power relay. Vega placed small charges along the conduit lines. Second target, fuel storage tanks. Private Torres carried the high-yield explosives. She set the timers carefully. Third target, the shipyard control center. Rivers led 3 soldiers through narrow maintenance tunnels. They reached the control room, where 4 Dravari officers worked at their consoles. Without sound, the humans entered. 4 silent shots. For Dravari down, Rivers plugged a small black device into the control panel. The device uploaded false data, showing everything normal. On board the Black Phantom, the pilot watched the clock. 5 minutes until extraction, she whispered. Inside the shipyard, the human team moved to the final phase. Vega synced the detonators. Ready, he said. Rivers gave the signal. The humans sprinted back toward the drop point. AVARI patrols finally noticed something was wrong. Alarms started ringing too. Late, the first explosion tore through the fuel tanks. Fire raced along the lower decks. A second blast shook the main power grid. Lights went out across the shipyard. The 3 nearly finished Dravari battleships caught fire. Then the final charge detonated near the core reactor. The entire station exploded in a giant fireball. From orbit, the Black Phantom's sensors showed the blast radius. Debris scattered across space. Commander Rivers and his team, already back inside the ship, strapped in as the pilot jumped to hyperspace. Mission complete, Rivers said. Back on Dravari Prime, news of the destruction reached the High Council within hours. Xylan Reach is gone, the military advisor said. How? Zelva demanded. Unknown attackers, no survivors. Humans, Zelva hissed. Panic spread among the council members. If they can reach Xylan Reach, where will they hit next? One counselor asked. No one had an answer. On Earth, Admiral Reyes smiled as she read the mission report. Good work, she said. Commander Holt looked over the star map. The Dravari will fortify their borders now, he said. Let them, Reyes replied. We're already inside, deep behind enemy lines. More ghost teams prepared for their next missions. On Dravari worlds, civilian broadcasts started to change. Unknown, Attacks ... explosions ... sabotage ... human infiltrators ... Fear grew in Dravari cities, markets became empty, people stayed indoors, military bases went on high alert, but still, human agents kept striking. One night, on a remote Dravari mining planet, a large fuel depot exploded. The next day, 2 communication satellites went offline. In a distant star system, a supply convoy vanished. The Dravari called these incidents ghost strikes, but Earth called them something else. Shadow strike. Admiral Reyes called her fleet commanders. Next phase begins now, she said. Across human space, fleets prepared for a full offensive. The Dravari Dominion, once proud and powerful, now looked to the stars with fear, and the humans kept moving. Faster, darker, deadlier. The war had just begun, and humanity was not stopping. Vyrix Station floated near the edge of Dravari space. It was a massive refueling and repair hub for their fleet. Hundreds of ships came and went from Vyrix every week. The station was known for its strong shields and heavy weapons. The Dravari believed it was untouchable. Inside the station's command center, Captain Vroland stood with his hands behind his back. He stared at the holographic map showing the surrounding systems. "Any sign of human activity?" he asked. "Nothing, sir," his officer replied. "Sensors show all clear." Roland smiled. "Let them hide in the shadows. If they dare to come here, we'll crush them." But Captain Vroland was wrong. Far away, the Terran fleet was already on the move. Admiral Reyes stood aboard her flagship, the TSF Titan, looking at the mission plan Vyrix Station. She said, "Time to make some noise." Commander Holt stood beside her. "They won't expect a direct assault, not yet." "That's the point," Reyes answered. A total of 20 Terran warships prepared for the attack. 3 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers, 10 corvettes, and 2 carrier ships loaded with fighter squadrons. They jumped into the Vyrix system without warning. The Dravari were not ready. Inside Vyrix Station, alarms screamed. "Enemy fleet detected," a sensor officer yelled. Multiple Terran ships approaching fast. Captain Vroland's face went pale. "Raise shields. Arm all weapons. Launch every fighter we have." The station's massive gun batteries powered up. Hundreds of Dravari fighters scrambled from hangars. The space around Vyrix turned into chaos. Terran destroyers opened fire first, launching waves of missiles toward the station. Plasma blasts from Vyrix's guns answered back, striking one human corvette and damaging its engines. Admiral Reyes stayed calm. "Send in the hammer squads," she ordered. Terran heavy bombers broke from the carrier ships and dove toward the station. Their bombs hit the shield generators on the station's surface. Small cracks appeared in Vyrix's defenses. Inside the station, Captain Vroland shouted orders. "Focus all fire on their bombers. Don't let them breach the shields." But the Terran fighters swarmed the Dravari defense lines. Human pilots flew with deadly precision, taking out enemy fighters one by one. On board the TSF Titan, Commander Holt pointed at the tactical map. "Shields, dropping on their western flank," he said. "Good," Reyes replied. "Bring in the Titans." The 3 Terran heavy cruisers moved forward. Their railguns and pulse cannons opened up. Giant metal slugs and energy beams hammered Vyrix Station parts of the station's outer hull broke apart. Fires burned along its docking bays inside. Dravari engineers worked desperately to repair shield generators. On the ground level of the station, Dravari soldiers prepared for boarding defense. But the humans were already inside. A small strike team, led by Sergeant Lee and Chen, had sneaked aboard through a damaged airlock. They moved fast, using stun grenades and pulse rifles. In the control room, Captain Vroland received a new report. "Boarders, human soldiers inside the station." Vroland's hands shook. "How did they get in?" he shouted. "No idea. They're moving toward reactor control." Vroland cursed. "Seal off that section. Kill them all." Sergeant Lee and his squad moved deeper into the station, blasting through Dravari security teams. Chen placed charges on key power conduits. "We blow the reactor core," Lee said. "On my mark." Outside, the battle in space grew more intense. A Dravari cruiser fired a direct hit at a Terran destroyer, sending it spinning out of control. But the Terran carrier answered with a full launch of attack drones. The drones swarmed the cruiser, tearing it apart. Admiral Reyes watched the data. 5 minutes until their main shields collapse, Holt said. "Make it 3, Reyes replied. She ordered all ships to focus fire on the station's shield array. Human fleet obeyed. Torpedoes, railgun slugs, and focused beam weapons hit the same spot again and again. The shields flickered. Then failed Vyrek Station's defenses dropped. Terran heavy bombers swooped in for the kill. They dropped high-yield bunker busters on the station's core structure. Inside, Sergeant Lee gave the final command, detonate. The charges exploded. The reactor control room filled with fire. Outside, Admiral Reyes saw the entire station's central section break apart. Vyrek Station began to tear itself in half. Captain Roland watched the destruction from the main bridge. Abandoned station, someone shouted, but it was too late. A final explosion ripped through Vyrek's flames and debris-filled space. Terran ships pulled back, watching the station fall. Vyrex is gone, Commander Holt said. Reyes nodded. Send the message. Across the galaxy, human news channels reported the victory. Vyrek Station destroyed. Terran fleet dominates enemy space. On Dravari Prime, High Commander Zelvar listened to the news in silence. Another major station gone, another fleet lost. His advisors stood around him, waiting for orders. Zelvar clenched his teeth. This isn't over, he said. I want every ship we have ready for battle. But sir, one advisor whispered, our people are afraid. Zelvar turned slowly. Then make them fear me more, he said coldly. But deep in his mind, doubt kept growing. The humans were fighting harder, smarter, and deadlier than anyone expected, and they were just getting started. The sun rose over Dravari Prime, but the city streets stayed quiet. Shops stayed closed. The skies above the capital were filled with defense, drones, and patrolling fighters. Fear had spread like poison. After the fall of Vyrek Station, news traveled fast. Civilians whispered rumors in dark corners. Soldiers walked nervously along the walls. Even the proud banners of the Dominion seemed to hang lower than before. Inside the High Council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. High Commander Zelvar stood. At the center, the councillors sat around him, looking pale and restless. We lost Vyrex, Zelvar said, his voice hard. But that's not the worst news. He turned to his intelligence officer. Tell them. The officer stepped forward, holding a datapad. New reports, he began. Our supply convoys, gone. Mining colonies in Sector 8. Silent communications with the Northern Fleet, broken. We believe human forces are behind all these attacks. One councillor stood up. How are they moving so fast? Our borders should have stopped them. Another councillor shouted. We need to increase security on every planet. Zelvar raised his hand, signaling them to stop. It's not just security, he said. It's fear. Our people are scared. Factories are slowing down. Workers aren't showing up. Even our soldiers, they're starting to doubt. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in Dravari history, panic had reached the homeworld. In the streets outside, angry crowds gathered. Protesters shouted at government buildings. Some carried signs. Where is our fleet? Protect Dravari Prime. Stop the human threat. Police tried to control the crowds, but small riots started breaking out. In one district, a fuel depot exploded. No one knew if it was sabotage or accident. People screamed and ran as smoke filled the air. Inside military bases, young soldiers received emergency training. They drilled day and night, but most had never seen real combat. In orbit above the planet, Dravari battleships circled like nervous animals. Their captains watched the space around them with shaking hands, afraid of sudden human strikes. At the same time, far away in deep space, the Terran fleet prepared for its next move. Aboard the TSF Titan, Admiral Reyes stood at the strategy table. Dravari Prime is scared, Commander Holt said. We've hit their stations, their supply lines, their fleets, and now their civilians are losing trust. Reyes nodded. Perfect. That's when enemies make mistakes. The Terran fleet started moving closer to Dravari territory. Meanwhile, on the surface of Dravari Prime, Zelvar met with his top generals. We need to show strength, Zelvar said. Order all remaining fleets to gather near our home system. Build more planetary defenses. Double the patrols. One general hesitated. Sir, if we pull all fleets back to defend the homeworld, the outer colonies will be left undefended. Let them fall, Zelvar shouted. Dravari Prime must survive. His generals obeyed, but doubt showed on their faces. That night, Dravari Prime's skies turned red as thousands of defense lasers powered up. Civilian broadcasts showed images of proud soldiers, strong warships, and Zelvar giving speeches. We will not fall, the Dominion will stand forever. But behind the cameras, evacuation plans started. The Dravari elite quietly moved their families to underground shelters. Secret government ships prepared for escape missions. Even Zelvar kept a small shuttle ready, just in case, in the shadows of the capital city resistance. Groups formed, some Dravari civilians started planning against their own government. They believed Zelvar was leading them to ruin. One night, a secret message appeared on public channels. It showed Terran warships, Terran soldiers, Terran victories. Then, a single sentence appeared on every screen. "We're coming." The message lasted only 10 seconds, then vanished. But it was enough. Panic spread faster. Banks closed. Food supplies dropped. Fights broke out in the streets. Parents pulled their children from schools. Hospitals filled with injured protesters in the council chamber. Zelvar stared at the reports. His hands trembled. For the first time, he felt real fear. Far above, in the cold, dark space near the edge of the system, Terran stealth ships waited, watching, preparing. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the TSF Titan, staring at the image of Dravari Prime. Commander Holt stepped beside her. "They're scared," he said. Reyes smiled slightly. "Good," she replied. "Let's make them terrified." And as the human fleet moved into position, the final phase of the war was about to begin. The blackness of space around Dravari Prime stayed silent for hours. No ships moved. No signals came, just cold stars and empty void. But deep beyond the far moons, the Terran fleet waited. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the TSF Titan, staring at the tactical map. Hundreds of small green dots appeared around the planet. Each dot, a human warship. "This is it," Commander Holt said. "Final phase." Reyes gave a single nod. "Send the signal." A coded pulse shot through space. Every Terran ship received the message. Attack. Within seconds, the dark sky near Dravari Prime came alive. Terran destroyers jumped from hyperspace, followed by heavy cruisers and carrier ships. Swarms of fighters poured out from hangars like a cloud of angry insects. On the planet's surface, sirens screamed. Inside the Dravari High Command Center, Zelvar stood frozen. Enemy fleet. Hundreds of ships. A sensor officer yelled. Eyes widened. "All ships to battle stations. Launch every fighter. Arm all ground-based weapons." In orbit, Dravari defense platforms opened fire. Laser beams and missile volleys lit the sky. But the Terrans were faster. Terran corvettes dodged incoming fire, striking the platforms with precision railgun shots. Fighter squadrons engaged in brutal dogfights above the upper atmosphere. On board the TSF Titan, Admiral Reyes watched the battle unfold. "Deploy ground drop teams," she ordered. Dozens of troop carriers broke formation, diving toward the planet's surface. The Dravari tried to shoot them down, but the human pilots flew too fast, too low on the ground. Terran soldiers landed in key locations: power stations, communication centers, and planetary shield controls. Sergeant Vega led one squad through the industrial district, blasting through Dravari defense lines. Private Torres hacked into the planetary grid, shutting down local sensors. At the main defense tower, Commander Rivers and his ghost team fought room by room, floor by floor. Dravari soldiers resisted, but panic made them sloppy. In the skies, the Terran fleet kept hammering Dravari warships. The Dravari battleship Sunfire exploded after taking 4 direct hits. The carrier Vorthax Pride tried to escape, but a Terran destroyer chased it down and finished it with torpedoes. Reyes kept giving short, cold commands. "Next target." That cruiser group wiped them out. Inside the Dravari capital, civilians ran through the streets. Government buildings caught fire. Shops were abandoned. Screams filled the air. High, Commander Zelvar watched live feeds of burning districts. Smoke rose high into the sky. Explosions shook the ground. He turned to his military aide. "Status of the fleet." "Half destroyed, sir," the aide answered. "The rest, retreating or surrounded." Zelvar's face darkened. Then the planetary shields failing. Too many control stations lost to the humans. For the first time in Dravari history, the homeworld stood vulnerable. Terran ground troops moved closer to the government quarter. Artillery fire shook the outer walls. In orbit, the TSF Titan drifted forward, moving within direct bombardment range. "Final warning," Commander Holt asked. Reyes shook her head. "No warning." The Titan's main cannons charged. From orbit, huge energy beams shot down toward key Dravari defense sites. Entire bases turned to dust. On the streets, Dravari soldiers dropped their weapons and fled. Inside bunkers, civilians huddled together, crying and waiting for the end. On the council chamber, Zelvar stood alone. Most of his counselors had already escaped or gone into hiding. He activated a secure channel to the planetary broadcast system. His face appeared on every screen across Dravari Prime. "This is High Commander Zelvar," he said, voice shaking. "To all Dravari citizens, hold your ground. Fight where you can, we will never surrender. Suddenly, the walls of the council chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Zelva's guards ran inside. Sir, they've broken the outer gates. Zelva pulled a pulse pistol from his belt. Then let them come, he said. Down below, Terran soldiers pushed through the final defense lines. Commander Rivers led the charge toward the council tower. Gunfire filled the air. Explosions ripped open walls. Dravari soldiers fell one after another. Inside the council building, Zelva stood at the top floor waiting outside. The human soldiers closed in. Admiral Reyes received the live report from her ground teams. Council tower breached, Holt said. Our forces are moving in. Reyes gave a small, satisfied smile. This war ends here, she said. The siege of Dravari Prime had begun, and the humans were not stopping. Smoke covered the city. Fires burned across the skyline. Explosions echoed in every direction. The streets of Dravari Prime looked like a battlefield. The proud capital city now lay in ruins. Terran soldiers moved block by block, clearing enemy positions. Drones flew overhead, marking targets for orbital strikes. Terran artillery units fired from captured ground. Inside the council tower, High Commander Zelva stood with his remaining guards. Dust covered his uniform. Blood stained his hands. He had been fighting since morning. Double quotes. Sir, we can't hold this floor much longer, one guard said. Zelva shook his head. We fight here, to the end. From below, the sounds of human soldiers grew louder. Pulse rifles cracked. Grenades exploded. Dravari screams mixed with the shouts of Terran Marines. Commander Rivers led the Terran assault team. Push forward, he shouted. His soldiers moved quickly, clearing rooms with precision shots. On the top floor, Zelva prepared his last defense. He checked the charge on his pulse pistol. Only a few shots left. He looked around at his guards. If anyone wishes to leave, do it now, he said. No one moved. Zelva gave a bitter smile. Good. Suddenly, the wall to the council chamber exploded inward. A Terran breaching team stormed the room. Zelva fired first, hitting one human soldier in the chest. The Terrans answered with stun grenades and rifle bursts in seconds. All of Zelva's guards lay on the floor, dead or unconscious. Zelva stood alone, breathing hard, waiting for the kill shot, but Commander Rivers raised a hand. Hold fire, he ordered. The Terran soldiers lowered their weapons. Rivers stepped forward. Hi, Commander Zelva, he said. You're coming with us. Zelva's eyes narrowed. You want me alive? Rivers gave a small nod. Orders from Admiral Reyes. Zelva laughed weakly. Then let's get this over with. The Terran soldiers cuffed him and dragged him from the room. Down in the streets, Terran victory banners already flew. Civilians watched as human soldiers took control of key buildings. Hospitals became safe zones. Food was handed out to civilians. Terran medics treated wounded Dravari alongside their own. In orbit, Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge of the TSF Titan, watching live feeds of the planet below. High Commander captured, Commander Holt reported. Enemy forces surrendering all across the planet. Reyes stayed silent for a moment. Then she spoke. Send the broadcast. Across every screen, on every channel, on every corner of Dravari Prime, a single message appeared. Dravari Prime is under Terran control. People froze in the streets. Some cried. Some dropped to their knees. The Dominion had fallen. Inside a secure prison cell aboard the TSF Titan, Zelva sat alone. His hands rested on the metal table. His eyes stared at nothing. The door opened. Admiral Reyes walked in. She sat across from him. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, Reyes broke the silence. Your war is over, she said. Zelva looked at her, tired and broken. For now, he answered. Reyes stood, turning to leave. We'll see. Back on the surface, Terran soldiers worked alongside Dravari civilians to rebuild broken streets. Children peeked from windows, watching the human soldiers with wide, curious eyes. Some brave ones waved. A few Terran soldiers waved back. Commander Holt stood beside Reyes on the observation deck, watching the planet rotate below. Victory, he said softly. Reyes nodded. But this is just the beginning, she said. Far away, deep in unknown space, other alien empires watched the fall of Dravari Prime. Some felt fear, some felt anger, and some started making plans. But one thing became clear across the galaxy. Declaring war on humans had been a very bad mistake, and humanity was far from done. The dust over Dravari Prime had not settled yet. Fires still burned in some parts of the city. Smoke still rose from broken buildings, but the fighting had stopped. The humans had won. On board the TSF Titan, Admiral Reyes stood in the main communication room. Giant screens showed images of space. enemy fleet movements, and live feeds from cities below. Her officers stood waiting for her next order. Commander Holt stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, "are you sure you want to do this?" Reyes didn't answer right away. She walked toward the main console and stared at the blinking light. That light connected them to the galaxy. To every empire, every government, every military leader who had watched this war unfold. Finally, she spoke. "Yes," she said, "it's time." The broadcast began. Across thousands of star systems, across colonies, trade hubs, spaceports, and enemy war rooms, the image of Admiral Reyes appeared. She wore her Terran fleet uniform. Her face was calm but hard. "This is Admiral Reyes, of the Terran Space Force," she said. Her voice carried weight. "Strong, clear, cold. Dravari Prime has fallen. Their fleet destroyed, their government captured, their homeworld under human control." She paused for a moment. "Every empire, every ruler, every warlord who thought humanity was weak, this is your lesson." She leaned slightly closer to the camera. "You declared war on us. You thought we would break. You thought we would surrender." Reyes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We don't surrender, we don't forget, and we don't stop." Across the galaxy, millions watched in silence. In the throne rooms of alien kings, in the war councils of other species, in the dark bars and back rooms of black market traders, everyone listened. Reyes continued. "If you choose war with us, this is your future. Ruined cities, broken fleets, fallen leaders." On the screens behind her, footage played. The burning Dravari fleet, the fall of the council tower, Zelvar being dragged in chains. Human soldiers standing victorious over enemy banners. Reyes gave her final words. "Think carefully before your next move, because the next time you choose war with humanity will do worse than burn your sky." The screen went black. Silence stretched across space. On Dravari Prime, people slowly stepped out of shelters. Terran soldiers helped distribute food and water. Terran engineers repaired power grids. Children played again in the streets, chasing each other past Terran patrols. In his prison cell, Zelvar sat staring at the floor, knowing the galaxy had just changed forever. On other distant worlds, alien leaders held secret meetings. Some began planning alliances, others increased their armies. Few quietly started sending messages to Earth, offering peace talks. But everyone understood one thing now. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The legend of Earth had grown. And across the stars, the words of Admiral Reyes became a warning that would echo for generations. Declaring war on humans had been their last mistake, and humanity was just getting started.